So today we want to talk about peptides. They've been coming up a lot in the office, all the buzz on social media. No one knows exactly which one to pick. There's so many options, and we want to clarify today. To start, I want to make sure that you guys know that this is an educational only, not medical advice episode. You always want to work with a thoughtful care provider and a medical professional that is understanding your medical history, your baseline, your efforts, allergies, making sure that lab work is complete and that you're sourcing your peptides from a thoughtful source and you know what's in them. There's many forms of peptides that are coming up to the surface, and we're going to talk about 4 today. So we're going to talk about peptides that are oral pills. BPC 157 and KPV are our 2 favorites, utilizing them for healing, lowering inflammation, and gut health. We have our injectable forms of peptides. We're using them for an assortment of things, such as BPC 157, KPV, TB4, TB500, GHK, copper. We're using them in our aesthetics, our wellness, our building of muscle, our recovery, our repair, our sleep, our hormonal balancing, our insulin resistance, and then more and more and more. We're using our skincare that has peptides in there. We're anti-aging, recovering, allowing delivery to the skin for optimal healing and anti-aging. And we're using them in our wrinkle relaxers. So our Daxify is one of our Botox options that has the ability to have peptides deliver that neurotoxin right to that acetylcholine receptor. So there's not that spreading, there's not that washout, and you're getting more long-lasting results. Peptides have become all the rage, but we're using them wisely at Powell Studio, and we can't wait to help you optimize your results. So we all have different goals, different starting points. I am working mostly with CEOs. I'm working with the overachievers, the athletes, the ones who want to elevate. These people are not looking for GLP-1s. They're not looking for peptides to be their every solution for weight loss, for muscle building, for inflammation, resets, for tissue healing. They really want to make sure that they have all the other foundational options in place. They're working out, they're paying attention to nutrition. They are making sure that their everyday decisions are what's in their best interest for metabolic health, for optimal health, for rest and recovery, so that they can deliver the most beautiful outcomes and have the most optimal health. When they're seeking peptides or when we're making recommendations at Powell Studio for peptides, we are actually starting with a basic lab panel. We want to make sure that we're assessing all of the different metabolic functions in the body, and it's a smorgasbord. We're looking at thyroid, we're looking at hormonal balancing, we're looking at inflammatory markers, we're making sure that we understand insulin levels in the body. How are you using insulin for energy? Are you storing fat, burning fat? Are you with hormonal imbalances? Are you inflamed? If you are looking to elevate, you want to make sure that all of these different functions in the body, the pituitary gland, your cortisol levels, all of these things are in order before you start to try and elevate. We don't want waste. We don't want haste. We don't want to create chaos in the body and have extra unnecessary time investment and money investment that's not going to achieve your goals. So we look at these lab values with your lifestyle, with your current efforts, and make thoughtful recommendations of when implementing and starting peptides would be in your best interest. On occasion, we're using things like BP 157, TB4 or TB500. For someone who comes in, they've got poor gut health, they have a lot of inflammation, they're feeling stuck and troubled. But when I hear things about gut health and inflammation, I want to think about healing first before we go and push. And so it's not that we always have to wait for peptides until everything is in place, because sometimes we're using them as a source to get things in order. And so you want to make sure that you understand when you're working with your provider what your current goals are and starting points. So what are peptides? Peptides are amino acid chains that actually trigger and signal different messages in the body. So we're seeing that people are using them for our healing pathways, for metabolic pathways, for hormonal pathways. We're using them for recovery and repair. We're using them for things like deeper sleep, for stimulation of muscle growth. We're remembering that there's so many different options, and why they've been such an important part of regenerative medicine is that they're going to elevate every opportunity for these messages to be clear. We had them, we started with them, but we deplete of their ability to function optimally. These messages become more difficult. We have things like inflammation in the way, and poor health of our every cell in the body. And so when we have these support systems of peptides, they're able to re-trigger, refire, and reinvigorate those messages to the body so that we can get those functions in order and have them maximize our outcomes. Peptides have been exciting in every area of opportunity as far as specialties. So we have, we think about orthopedics and healing and tissue recovery with our BPC 157 or TB 500 or TB4. We think about GHK copper, and we think about collagen building and hair and nail support and beauty and aesthetics. We have so many other options. Tesamorelin, that's going to signal our growth hormone and muscle rebuilding and repair. We have different opportunities to support the body in every single function that drives optimal health, recovery, sleep, metabolic function, optimal health, longevity, aesthetics. It's remarkable to see where we've come and what options that we have to support us. So if you're anything like me, when I started with peptides, I was totally overwhelmed by all of the letters, remembering what they were doing, trying to decide which one to start with. And that's why I say peptides aren't always the first choice. We don't want to start with them always because we want to see where our baseline functionality is with our lab work, lifestyle, and any challenges and resistance that we're currently meeting to meet our goals. And so for me, I thought about how am I going to really get into the nitty-gritty of which one to choose. And so when I had done my core baseline labs, I was insulin resistant and I did have inflammation and I had poor gut health. And so when I'm thinking about how am I going to maximize my outcomes of weight management and improved energy and making sure that my energy and my mood stay stable, I need to lower inflammation. I need to be using my insulin for energy, not for storing because of high cortisol and stress, that I am always in a sugar burning state because my cells are inflamed. I'm not having my receptors readily available to receive any of the messages from the nutrition I'm taking in or my workouts. And so I wanted to start with healing. And so although I only mentioned a few peptides so far in this episode, the list is long and the goals are various. And so starting with a provider that understands what each peptide is capable of and whether or not choosing them as an individual peptide or actually stacking a combination. Peptides, most of them are coming in an injectable form. And so we understand injection fatigue. We don't want you poking all over the body every day and having to really think about something that you dread with injections and making sure that you can stay on track with a protocol. We have different things like our BPC 157. When people are coming in with an actual acute injury, we increase the dose and have a shorter period of time that we're using to treat because we want optimal improvement in an acute injury. When we think about chronic or we think about just maintenance, we can spread those doses out over a longer period of time. And so we may choose an individual peptide that's going to be thought about, how am I going to integrate this throughout the year? BPC 157 may be used individually at one point in the year. It may be done twice a year. It may be done quarterly. You want to make sure that you're taking breaks in your peptides. And so when you work with your provider, you can say like, okay, I want to start with this healing, but then I want to elevate and I want to push for muscle rebuilding. So then you'll pick a different one like your tesamorelin or ipamorelin. I always think about all of our options, and although they are a wonderful resource, they're not for everybody. If you're someone who has a history of cancer, you want to make sure that you're being careful. Things like NAD and ipamorelin can re-trigger and refire cells that are not ones that you want to wake up, cells that you don't want to recover and heal. You want to be removing those cells and keeping them from regenerating things that you don't want, dysfunction and cancers and autoimmune flares. We don't want any of that stuff to be something that we are creating more chaos in. So you want to make sure that you're working with your medical provider, stacking throughout the year, starting with lab work, understanding clear identification about which ones are in your best interest, which ones to avoid, what your length of time that you will stay on each of them for. Like I mentioned, BPC 157 may be 20 to 40 days. Your tesamorelin is 5 days a week with 2 days of rest for 5 months. And so there's a huge variation of how people will integrate these throughout the year, but you can stack different ones same time. You can go from one to the next throughout the year. You can start with some, take breaks. There's so many different options I understand why it can be overwhelming and why it can be something that creates a little bit of analysis paralysis. At Powell Studio, we make sure that we see you as a whole, we understand your goals, we break down a thoughtful treatment plan that shows you why starting here, jumping to here, going to this space next would be in your best interest, helping you to organize strategy, timelines, how it fits into your lifestyle and schedule, and how we can optimize outcomes with a timeline that meets your goals as well. I love maintenance. Maintenance is an important conversation, and it's not something that a lot of people even think about when they're getting into the nitty-gritty of getting started with peptides. These aren't something that you need to continue to do forever, although many people continue to incorporate them on some sort of regular cycling because they create an improvement in where they're already doing a lot of their wellness interventions. So if you are working out hard, you think about, okay, I am, now in my 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s, you recover a little bit differently. And so having this boost of support is always a positive thing. It's not necessary, but if you want to live this long life where we aren't being told by our bodies what we are able to and not able to do, and you want to say, I want to live and make sure my body thinks that I'm many years younger so I can be vivacious, so I can have energy, so I can travel the world, so I can, live my best life, then you want to continue to integrate them strategically, maybe a little less often, maybe quarterly instead of an ongoing space, but that's something that you can navigate with your provider safely when you have sourced your products, your peptides from a thoughtful source and with a schedule and a routine and a continuous evaluation of how these peptides are meeting your goals. We're continuously looking at lab work. We're using our Sika scale, making sure that body composition is staying safe and effective, that we're not wasting away in muscle, that we're not creating more chaos. We're not challenging the body and stressing out things like the pituitary gland. We're using our PNOE and making sure we're testing metabolic function, how you're optimizing your health, how your body recovers. Is it as your actual age, or are you, living the life in your 50s like you did in your 30s because your metabolic function is so solid? So these are different things that are science-based, they're not opinions, and they track your efforts. And these have been a huge resource in our office so that we can show people, yes, we're on the right track, or hey, I think we actually need to make a pivot and make sure that we focus on the gut, or we focus on this healing and recovery instead of pushing because your body isn't responding in the right way to it. These are quick pivots and returns. We don't want years of ongoing efforts and making sure that you aren't wasting and being discouraged like I had experienced of trying all the things and not seeing the prize. So peptides have been a positive experience at Powell Studio. I personally am loving my experience stacking my Glow peptide. I've utilized my BPC 157 independently to heal my gut and to make sure that low back pain that I was experiencing from 5 C-sections had recovered so that my workouts could be better and more accelerated. My tesamorelin is helping now. I'm deep sleeping. My muscle recovery after post-workouts has been tremendous. I'm seeing on my Sika scale that I'm maintaining muscle mass. I'm not having a ton of water retention that I've noticed. Actually, I tried a different peptide, the AOD, and it is something that I am always passionate about, is trying everything before I am going to make a thoughtful recommendation out to my patients so I can share through experience what I had experienced. Not to say it's going to be the same, but it helps me to navigate choosing the right person for the right peptide or choosing the right person for the right treatment, making sure that I'm not creating an unexpected period of time where they might have water retention or what seems to them to be a setback before they see the prize. And so sometimes we do have this healing cascade that's happening, and you will feel like things are getting worse before they get better. But it's brief and it's a part of that healing process. So being able to cheer them on confidently to say like, no, this is normal. Do not let it scare you. Your body is opening up its drainage pathways, or we have worked on all of these other areas that have healed. And now we know that peptides are going to optimize your outcome. Here is our timeline. Here's how often we check back in. Here's how often we reevaluate. Keep that communication open and support every step of the way through your peptide journey. If elevating your wellness and aesthetics is what's in line with your future and this episode resonated with you, please reach out to us so we can support that pathway of peptide journey and make sure that you can optimize your results.